All right, so we're here together to do a podcast. God is known for his promises, and so I want to see what God has and what God's going to do for us. This is Tonya Menuey.
Hello.
And we are coming from Minot, North Dakota after blizzard number 2. And we are also on the edge of what we call PCS season. And I've purged what that even stands for.
Permanent change of station.
Thank you.
We use these acronyms like they're a foreign language. And then we're like, oh, wait, I have to explain that now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which means we are about to pack up the whole family and move again. We are rather seasoned, beautiful ladies, and so we have quite a few of these under our belts. But I bring this lovely lady here to talk because she is an amazing writer and she's an amazing speaker who brings such peace and grace wherever she goes. And so I just wanted to scoop her up and be in this moment to just talk about God.
So you mentioned that it's PCS season and we both are getting ready to leave again. And I don't know about you, but this is move number 12 for us, I think. 12. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I've really learned over nearly 26 years of military service my husband's been in, and is how do we embrace where we're sent? We don't get to choose. When's the last time you got to choose where you were going to go, Kim?
Never.
Right. Yeah. We never get to choose. So there was one point. They do. There's this thing called the dream sheet. And several years ago, Chris said, well, I have to fill out my dream sheet. And I was in not a really great place. And I was like, why? It's just a dream anyway. They won't send us what we put on it. But I have learned in all those years that really the important thing is not where you are. It's whether you're going to embrace where God sent you, because I 100% believe that God's actually bigger than the Air Force and that the Air Force just thinks they're in charge, but they're not. And God really is. And so you can choose to embrace where you're sent or you can choose to hate it. And we've known plenty of people like that, right? Mm-hmm. And in fact, as Kim mentioned, we're in Minot, North Dakota, and Minot Air Force Base.
Like bottom 3, right? I don't know what the other ones are. I'm sure I could guess.
Of the least preferred locations. Yep. And so you hear stories, particularly from military spouses that say, I cried when I found out we were going to Minot. But the people that choose to embrace it, they're the ones that will say they cry when they leave. Mm-hmm. Because they have found a way in the hard, what Kim failed to mention was that we just went through blizzard number 2 in April.
Yeah.
She only mentioned it was blizzard number 2. Let's just make sure y'all know that it was.
And it's about to be May, and we have snow in the forecast.
Piles of snow on the ground. Yes. So it is a hard location, and it's dark in the winter, and it can be very lonely. We're in a very remote base by a small town. And so it's a choice. Mm-hmm. There's a choice to be made about whether you are going to embrace the experience or whether you're going to wallow. And it just never does anybody any good when you wallow. So there's this great verse in Acts 26 that says, from one man, God created all the nations throughout the whole earth. He decided beforehand when they should rise and fall. And actually a different version, I like it better. It says, he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. And the reason I love that is because it reminds us that God's placed us where we are on purpose, for a purpose, as another podcaster that I listen to says. But it's intentional. There's intent in the time he's placed us here, just like it says in Esther, for such a time as this, and in the place that he's put us. Yeah. And so when we can keep that in mind, it's easier to embrace the hard places. Yeah. It's easier to embrace the places that you don't want to go and to find the good in them.
Yeah. And we're so confronted with what's going on in the present moment that we forget God can see past.
Mm-hmm.
God can see in the future. He can see the season that's coming. He can see the where and the when and the why and the who, where we can't. And that's where we have to kind of change our lens a little bit and say, God, you know this better than I do. There's a reason. And I know your reason is good.
Right. Yes, absolutely. One of the verses, another verse that I really hold on to when I'm feeling lonely in that new place is a verse in Psalm. It's Psalm 90, verse 1. Lord, through all the generations, you have been our home. And so it was the Israelites saying that. They took the Lord and the tabernacle with them every time they moved. But it applies to us. Like when we feel so lost, that he's our home.
Yeah, exactly. He's the constant. So preparing for this podcast, I started thinking back how many times I've moved. 30 times.
Oh my goodness.
Not all of this military.
Sure.
But I am good at it. I'm really good at busting down doors, tearing down walls, pounding the pavement, trying to get things done, because I know my time here is short, and I don't want to be wasting time doing anything else. But there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of things I don't like. There's a lot of things that don't work out. There's a lot of people I don't get along with. There's a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but the only constant that gets me through it all is God.
Yeah.
He's the one that I bring with me in the ark, right?
And he's our home.
Yeah. I put him in every place, and that's what keeps me steady and gives me the tools to deal with all that stuff that's going to come that I don't know or I don't see.
Absolutely. There's one other verse in Psalm 146, verse 9 that says, the Lord watches over the sojourners. I love that because that is totally how it feels as a military family.
Yes, it does.
We are sojourners. We're just nomads traveling through this world.
That's right.
And wherever the Air Force sends us.
With our pack.
That's right. Mine's a little bigger than a pack, Kim. Mine's like a pretty big truck.
Mine's maxed out, just so everybody knows.
I like to think I could be a minimalist, and then I just can't. I got to bring my memories with me. But there are ways that we can embrace that. You have to look for the good in the place you are. North Dakota has the most beautiful sunflower fields and canola fields.
Yeah.
So my favorite color is yellow. And so when we drove into the state.
What a place for you.
Yeah, it was the canola fields and the sunflower fields. They overlap their blooming season. Yeah. And that's when we drove into Minot. And I was
brilliant.
On the car phones with my husband. And I was like, oh, look at all the yellow. It was like the state was made for me.
Yes.
And I can be honest and say we won't choose to come back to Minot, but we have found the good in it. I recently saw this post by someone in North Dakota that said, I think it was someone in Minot actually, that said, North Dakota was recently ranked the 50th state as far as beauty goes. They were very last. But he said, the problem is with that is that this journalist probably landed and looked around for a day and then flew off, and they weren't here after the blizzard
I'd like to have a discussion with that person.
To see, well, someone had to be last, right? They didn't stay long enough to see the beauty of North Dakota is the people.
Oh my gosh.
And that he said, after this blizzard, you looked around and you saw people helping one another. Even here on base, people helped shovel each other's yards, or someone ran out of food because they just weren't prepared. And people were bringing them food through 3 feet of snow. And that's the beauty. So even in places, it doesn't have to just be Minot, North Dakota. There's places some of our listeners are in that they don't like. Maybe it's not a location, or maybe it's a job. Maybe it's you're stuck somewhere and you feel like you can't get out, and it's important to embrace where you're sent there too.
And for me, getting outside has helped me do that. I'm from Texas. I love the warmth and the heat, and also my previous assignment was Hawaii. So doing a 180 like that and knowing how cold it gets here, I was a little nervous. But God blesses us with adaptable bodies. I mean, there's some chemical things that happen over time here. And if you allow yourself to go through some of those changes, your body can withstand a lot more than you think.
Oh, yeah. I was out yesterday it was 24 degrees, but it was sunny, and I left the house without a jacket. And I was like, wait, I did need one. That wasn't the smartest move I made, but you're right.
Yeah.
We do adapt, and at, 35 degrees, you're like, oh, it's balmy.
We're shoveling the driveways and I'm sweating.
Right.
I'm wanting to get in my shorts again.
So the funny thing is we talk about the weather a lot in Minot, but when I lived in Alabama, we talked about the weather just as much, but the other end. And I realized I can withstand a blizzard much better than I can stand the heat and humidity of the South. I'm not a Southern girl, people. But we also found the beauty there, and we embraced that Southern culture, and we embraced the diversity. It was a special 2 years in spite of the fact that I really thought I was going to melt in the humidity. So it's not ever about location, and it's always about the people.
And God's purpose, specifically you and the person he created you to be, he's put you there for a very specific purpose. Because there's a lot of people that need him everywhere.
Right.
I think about that too with my kids and where they're going to move next. And why would God allow them to be sent there? Or I have friends who have got kids choosing colleges, and they choose them very far away, and the parents are heartbroken.
She's
like,
really
why?
pushing it here because I might end up in tears. That's me. Yeah.
But there's a reason for that too.
Right.
And especially if they come in harm's way. Why, God, would you allow that to happen? But we have to know that he's in charge. And we're in his hands, and that there is a reason, and a very good one at that.
Right.
1 Thessalonians 5:21. But examine everything carefully and hold fast to that which is good. Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So for a God who causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, we love God. We can be sure and know that whatever circumstance he has allowed us to be in, there is some good to be had.
Right.
And so that 1 Thessalonians 5 verse just sets me on fire to the fact that, God, you sent me to the northern frontier after tropical paradise. There is some good to be had.
Right.
But I have to set foot out in it to do the testing and hold fast to that which is good. I'm not going to find the good if I'm hunkered down and not getting out to encourage others and to meet other people.
Right.
So yeah, it's a big deal to embrace where you're sent.
And look for the good in the place you are.